Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight.
The Prime Minister and Deputy Prime Minister addressed concerns surrounding Oban Energies.
A young man killed off Wilson Track. Find out the details straight ahead.
The Commissioner of Police addresses multiple issues affected by crime here in the country.
Our news is brought to you by Alive, the nation's newest and best LTE network.
Good to be alive.
Welcome to Our News and thanks for joining us. I'm Kyle Joaquin. Topping news tonight, one day after it was revealed that Oban Energy's non-executive chairman Peter Krieger was involved in a fraud case in the United States. Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis is revealing that the government was aware of the issue. Minnis also slammed some for, quote, jumping off cliffs about the project without seeing the heads of agreement, which was not tabled today as expected. Jasmine Brown reports.
Both men addressed the latest revelations as they exited the House of Assembly this afternoon. While Turnquest was tight-lipped on exactly what the government knew, Dr. Minnis was not. As he said, Krieger's past is no surprise to the government officials, whom he says did their due diligence. According to Dr. Minnis, Krieger admitted to his past while he was being investigated by the Bahamas Investment Authority.
This is not new revelations, Travis. He has answered you, he's explained himself. These are matters that were dealt by former governments. They had done the necessary due diligence. We completed the heads of agreement. The heads of agreement has certain commitments on both sides, and we hope that everything would go forward and work.
Yesterday, Krieger insisted Bahamians have nothing to fear about his involvement in the multi-billion-dollar project. The Oban executive also commented on a civil complaint filed with the Securities and Exchange Commission in the U.S. in 2005 against him, his father Sheldon Krieger, and John Mady. According to the complaint, Krieger, his father, and Mady, the principals of KFSI Equity Fund, were accused of violating of the federal securities laws. The complaint alleged that from June 1999 to December 2000, KFSI misappropriated more than $3.7 million of investor funds. The matter was settled in 2007. Krieger was one of several Oban executives who were present for the signing of the heads of agreement on Monday. The HOA was expected to be tabled in the House of Assembly today, but was not. Any reason why it was not tabled today, the heads of agreement?
Parliament was very short today, but it would be tabled next week.
Minnis went on to say that as far as he is concerned, critics should wait to see the heads of agreement before slamming the project. He also had this rebuke for the media.
That's why it's essential, before jumping off the cliff and asking questions, it's essential to review the heads of agreement. Then you come after me. But don't come in the blind. You know, it's like you sitting on the moon with a fishing line, dropping that line and trying to catch one fish on Earth. You don't know where the hell it's going throughout the universe. That's what you're doing.
You should have tabled the heads of agreement today then.
I should have done many things today. All right? Right now I want to get to my office. You keeping me away from that. You think that's right?
Meantime, the Deputy Prime Minister says he is not focused on the drama surrounding the project and insisted Bahamians shouldn't be either.
What I am looking forward to is an investment that is going to bring value to East Grand Bahama, that is going to employ and train persons in the community and give them an opportunity to expand the economy in East Grand Bahama, an area that has not seen development since really the missile base. And so that's what I'm focused on.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Thanks, Jasmine. While the opposition says the government has a lot of explaining to do when it comes to that heads of agreement signed with Oban Energies, particularly when it comes to Oban's ability to fund the project, according to Progressive Liberal Party Deputy Leader Chester Cooper, who says there are credibility concerns surrounding the company's non-executive chairman.
We have very, very little details at this point as to the extensiveness or not of the due diligence. We've seen many speculations in the press with respect to the character of some of the principals. And like you, we have many more questions on the issue, and we will be putting them to the government as well.
The government had intended to table the heads of agreement in Parliament during Wednesday's session. However, that didn't happen. Cooper says government must provide answers sooner rather than later regarding the deal.
We would like to understand the extent and the nature of the due diligence carried out by the government to determine fit and properness of the principals and shareholders and directors of Oban Energies. Certainly, we would also be interested in the financial due diligence that may have been carried out to give the government assurance that the project was ready to be in the heads of agreement phase.
The government of the Bahamas is seeking to borrow another $100 million. That revelation coming out of the House of Assembly this morning during Deputy Prime Minister Peter Turnquest's mid-year budget presentation. He explained the loan is for money. It's for the money government is to invest in Resolve Bahamas.
As I foreshadowed in my statement to Parliament on Resolve, and as was disclosed at the time of our recent international bond issuance, the government committed to facilitate Resolve's retiring the original $100 million promissory note issued to the Bank of the Bahamas in respect of the initial tranche of toxic loan transfers in accordance with an agreed schedule. After exploring funding options, the government is of the view that it would be best to access the domestic market given the ample level of excess liquidity, and in line with this commitment, new corresponding borrowing authorities will be sought from Parliament today to cover this sum.
In addition to the loan, the Deputy Prime Minister gave a brief overview of the country's financial status. According to Turnquest, for the first half of the year, revenue collection is up by $25 million compared to last year. And then there's more.
Overall spending, not related to debt redemption, is down by $67 million compared to last year through December. The full GFS deficit position has improved by $92.3 million when compared to last year. And this has occurred, Mr. Speaker, while still paying off tens of millions of dollars left in bills by the former administration.
Now, as for the savings they hope to achieve in the public service sector.
Mr. Speaker, despite the 10% cut being implemented across the board, the amount spent on personal emoluments, salaries and allowances in the first half of this year totaled $373 million as compared to $358 million in the corresponding period 2016-17, a $15 million increase.
He added that from all indications, the Bahamian economy has finally begun to recover from a lengthy period of underperformance. Voodoo economics is how the opposition summed up the Deputy Prime Minister's mid-year budget communication. During a press conference immediately following, PLP Deputy Leader Chester Cooper dug into the DPM statement, saying it was just another version of blame the PLP.
We heard nothing new. We heard nothing that inspires confidence.
Flanked by the other three opposition members of Parliament, Cooper said the DPM's communication failed to adequately address the lack of economic growth facing the country. He said Turnquest's validation for the government borrowing millions more didn't quite cut it either.
The Minister of Finance has yet again come to Parliament preaching fiscal consolidation, yet coming with a resolution in tow to borrow more money. This time, on top of the $90 million for which resolution was laid 2 weeks ago, $100 million more is being asked of the Parliament to be borrowed.
Cooper said the Minister's administration really has no excuse for cupboards being bare, given officials only had to deal with really one major natural disaster, which he said didn't affect as many islands as the previous ones under the Christie administration.
As expenditure goes up, revenue is on track to be lower than the year before. There were 2 catastrophic hurricanes in 2016, compared to 1 hurricane that did not impact as many people in 2017. Revenue collections, therefore, should be well in hand.
He said the Minister's administration has been doing nothing but digging into the economy to give the government something good to show the people.
The current administration is choking the life out of our economy in order to make the books look good. With all evidence pointing to economic growth when the government spends, this government has cut back and, in effect, made the issues even more severe.
In other news, a man who relatives claim was recently released from prison and actively seeking employment was shot and killed off Wilson Track last night. Jared Higgs has the details.
It was shortly after 8 last night when police were alerted to gunshots being fired in the Wilson Tract area. When they arrived, Chief Superintendent Solomon Cash tells us responding officers found a man suffering from gunshot wounds.
They met the body of a male who was lying in a yard just behind us. They called EMS to the scene, who examined the body and pronounced the deceased dead on the scene.
Distressed onlookers could be heard crying as the victim's body was removed from the crime scene. Our News understands the victim is 21-year-old Cordero Pedican.
Officers who came to the scene, they spoke to several persons who told them that the deceased was visiting a relative at the time when he was accosted by a lone gunman who apparently opened fire on him, shooting him several times. I can say to members of the public that we are following some significant leads as to who may be responsible for this incident.
Remnants of last night's incident were alive and well this morning when our News visited the scene. If you look at this neighbor's window, you can see where the glass was shattered by a stray bullet coming back over to this blue house where we understand the victim's sister lives. You can see where family members tried to wash the porch off, but sadly they were not able to get all the blood out. A neighbor who heard the shots estimated that Pedican was hit more than 15 times on the porch of his sister's home. Family members were too distraught to speak to our News on camera. However, they told us that Pedican was recently released from prison and was actively seeking employment. They say he lived only a few houses away from where he was killed. This latest homicide is the 16th on record for the year. It follows the shooting deaths of 2 men in Pinewood Gardens last Friday night. Reporting for our News, I'm Jared Higgs.
Still to come on our News, the commissioner outlines his new policing plan. The details are after this break.